Salam sejahtera, and that means good day in Bahasa or the Malaysian national language. And also, welcome back to the Product Uncensored show. Today, we are at episode 45, and we have a special guest today. Let me just bring her on to the stage, and then I'm going to introduce her a little bit. Our guest today is going to be talking to us about product expansion in Asia and how culturalization is so important, right? The amazing part is she's actually Malaysian born. So it's like, yay, Malaysia boleh. She's now based in the UK, but she apparently spends more time outside of the UK than in it. So yeah, I'll talk to her a little bit more about that. She's a cultural expert or slash cultural strategist with Beyō Global. She's had 15 years of experience working with companies such as Spotify, Netflix, Seek, Asana. I mean, I could go on like name dropping, but I think I shall stop there, lah, right? So yeah, really amazing to have Chui Chui Tan to the show. So please welcome. How are you, Chui Chui?
I'm good, thank you.
Fantastic. So let's start with something that's very, very interesting, right? So technically, you are Malaysian born. How did you end up in the UK?
Long story short, I actually did my undergraduate in Malaysia, in UTM, University of Technology Malaysia, as a mechanical designer. I worked for Panasonic for a bit, and then I decided to see the world. The world, for some reason, is the UK. So yeah, I actually ended up doing master in music technology in Belfast, and then I did a PhD in human-computer interactions. So that was almost 20 years ago. It's actually 20 and a half years ago. So yeah, that after I did my master and PhD, I just felt like I still not ready to. I still felt like I still want to explore more about the culture of the British culture and so on. And so yeah, I decided to stay back, and here we are, 20 and a half years later. I'm still there. I think that is probably also, whether I realize it or not, maybe that's where it starts. I already have the passions in understanding different cultures, meeting people from different countries. So, yeah.
Okay, fantastic. So let me get this straight. You actually have a degree. Sorry, what was the degree again?
Degree in mechanical engineering.
Yes. Okay. So degree in mechanical engineering, and then you did a master's in music.
Music technology. So it's like recording, compositions, and things.
Okay, and then your PhD is in
human and computer interactions. So that actually led me to user experience or usability at the time, and how the industry evolved, and now in the culturalizations.
Yes. So how does one get from mechanical engineering to music and then to human interaction? This is like 3 different diamond points of a triangle, you know.
So, well, it's actually, if in the high level sense, yeah, it sounds like very different. But sometimes I look back, and it's actually, human computer interactions or user experience and so on. There are actually a lot of things I did in mechanical engineering. Like I actually focus on industrial engineering, so it's looking into how to make the, for example, my thesis was about how to make production lines flow better. So you go and observe them. You kind of observe how people from the production line works. Is there any bottlenecks, and is there anything that you can help them to improve, like creating jigs or to help them to make their process easier and better. So that somehow is actually, as there's a connections between that and the human the user experience side as well. So yeah, it feels like a big leap from one to the another, but actually there are a lot of skills or experience actually being carried forward as well.
Okay. That sounds very interesting, though, that you can draw that line from mechanical engineering all the way there. But more, I think more importantly, to set the context for a conversation today, because I think culturalization is what you are passionate about. It's what you are good at. It's what you give trainings on. As we said just now, it's been with companies like, giants like, Netflix and Seek and Spotify. So it's not to say that, there's something small. It's obviously something big. But let's define, what is culturalization?
So I think culturalization, well, first of all, that word is actually not in any dictionary. If you can find it, like you can find it at Oxford or any other dictionaries I have. But it's quite self-explanatory. So it's about culture. But some another terms actually people are more familiar with is probably localizations. So localizations, we all understand. You can explain about that as well. It's kind of like getting into a new markets. You kind of localize it so that it's adapt to the what the local audiences need and want. But I tend to kind of avoid using that words if possible. The reason for that is because a lot of times when I ask the clients come to me or companies come to me say, oh, what should I do when I go into a new market? I just say how much you have done and what you are going to do and so on. You say, oh yeah, we've done a lot of localizations. And when you kind of prop more into it, then often are saying like, oh, we translate the language, we change the currency, and that is it. But of course, there are a lot more to it, right? If you want to go into a market and be successful. So I avoid that word and I kind of start using culturalizations. So it's quite similar in some ways, like you kind of provide your service or kind of provide a business that actually relevant to the local audiences. But localization is more surface level. So it's to kind of ensure communications and to avoid misunderstanding. And it's one-off thing. So you kind of change the language or you change the currency or the numeric format or how you address people from last name to first name or first name to last name and so on. But culturalization is another level. It actually encompasses a lot more. So it's it's a deeper process to kind of build connections with your local audience. And it often is not one-off, but it's actually a continuous, ongoing adjustments that you need to do and continuous understanding you need to have about the local market or local audiences. So it's a deeper sense and is more complex, if you like.
Okay. So the interesting thing about us having this conversation is obviously, you were born in Malaysia. I'm still here, and this podcast actually focuses on leaders in Asia, and one of the really interesting things about building products for Asia is exactly what you said, right? How there are different cultures that sort of mash into this melting pot of what we call Asia. And for some people, they'll say that even if you look more specifically into Southeast Asia, it's even more of a melting pot. Like between Malaysia, Singapore, Thailand, Indonesia, Philippines, like you've literally got a mash right there already. So in that case, right, if let's say from your perspective, how does culturalization begin for a company, let's say, who wants to start getting better at, I know you don't like the term localization, but yeah, how would they start there if let's say I'm a company A, and I really want to get better at really getting this culturalization aspect right?
Yeah. So it's well, depends on whether I think there's slightly difference between if you are a international brand. Well, I assume that we are talking about international brands or wanted to come into the Asia or Southeast Asia. Is that right? Not like local company trying to be local.
Yeah, let's start with that, and then actually after that my question extends to the second scenario, but let's start with this for now.
Okay, so yeah, you're right. So when people say like, oh, we go to Asia, like is that which part of Asia? Like even Japan is Asia and China is Asia. Like, are we talking about those or actually talking about like Southeast Asia that even like you say it's kind of melting pot as well? So there are a lot of so it's really important to think about like well, first of all, whether you come to the Asias or you go to any other market like Latin America or Middle Eastern countries, it's very important to kind of understand every single places that you go to. They have their, you have to look into not just the culture. When people were saying like it's the culture how different countries have and their social norms, their values and so on, but it's also thinking about the ecosystem they have in their countries. So for example, the infrastructures of their technology infrastructure, like in Malaysia as compared to Singapore or Indonesia and so on, like how fast or slow their internet connections, or what kind of technology infrastructure setup they have as well, because that ultimately will influence how people might use your product, especially your digital products as well. And then also you want to look into like how your product is going to be influence people behavior. So if every company is actually very different in the way of how they should approach their localization or culturalizations, because it's, you have to look into the products that you are serving or the industry you are serving as well. So for example, let's talk about Malaysia, because we have so many ethnicity with different culture and different behaviors and so on. But if you come in, for example, as so for example, I work with SIG before, like Job Street, like I say, Job Street, Jobs TV, in their Southeast Asia, Hong Kong, and also Australia and regions. So for SIG, it's very important to even look into every single details or elements within the country. So for example, in Malaysia, we have all these different ethnicities. When it comes to understanding the challenges or the needs in terms of recruiting or applying for jobs, there are actually elements you need to look into. For example, ethnicity does play a role, because we were looking into fair hiring. Unfortunately, sometimes there are things that actually different ethnicity will get different treatment or different way of being recruited and so on. So it's important in that elements to go very granular into understanding the different culture and how different ethnicity within a group, within a countries actually behave. But then if you talk about, for example, when I work with Spotify, like that elements is actually less important, because it's more about the use of technology, the use of the exposure of music, how they actually willingness to pay and so on. So there are different level, different granularity that you should think about. And also a lot of big companies outside of Malaysia is actually sometimes forgotten to look into the bigger picture. For example, how we talk about the infrastructure setup, but also comparing to the Western markets, the Asian markets or Southeast Asia, the market fragmentation is a bit different from the UK, for example. So in the UK, in every single element, you probably have an apps for that, service for that. You have a mobile, you have a car hiring, you have every single domain that is being covered by all these different services. But it's slightly different when in Malaysia or in Southeast Asia. The market fragmentation is different, because we don't have as many services or products that actually cover every single thing. That is why part of the reason, for example, super apps like Gojek, Grab, and WeChat in China and so on, actually successful, because that means that actually they bring in all the different elements into one apps, that so users actually don't have to go and find different apps or different services to serve the purpose of every single aspect in their life. But then in the UK or in other countries in the West, for example, super apps is harder, because then we already embedded quite well in terms of, I already used app A for these things, and app B for shopping, app C for ordering food and so on. So getting them into one app is harder. So there are a lot of that. And then you have to think about legislations. If you're outside Malaysia or Singapore or Thailand and Indonesia and so on. You have to understand that there's a legislation things that you have to think about. You have to kind of meet into the local legal or laws and so on. So it's not like you just can plop in your products from your other countries and then into the market. So yeah, there are a lot of things that you should kind of look into and understand what actually the aspects that is relevant to your products or your industry, and then go into that in a more in-depth
Thank you for
level.
that. That's very very thorough. I think we'll need to dive a little bit more into that. But maybe let me start, or rather continue with where I started the question. Right. So in your case, you were talking about how a company that's trying to penetrate a market that is more multicultural, I guess, or whether there's the market fragmentation is a little bit bigger. So I guess let me change the question up a little bit. So let's say we take a Southeast Asia super app. So let's say, you know, we take Gojek or we take Grab. And the thing is, they started in one of the countries in Southeast Asia. And as I mentioned just now, you know, just the four main or five main countries within Southeast Asia are all different. They've got different habits. They have different people segments and things like that. How do we make sure that when you're trying to expand your product into another market, that you actually don't lose your identity as well? Because I mean, the one aspect that's very important, yes, is the culturalization, understanding the needs, but at the same time, you know, the leaders and how we see products that succeed is because they also have a very specific identity that they have, right? So I guess my question is, how do you culturalize it in a way that fits the culture without losing that unique value
Identity.
proposition? Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
No, that is very fair questions, very important questions as well, because when I was writing my book, and this is one of the questions that's like, how do we make sure that you don't lose your international identity when you go into a market as well? And it's very important to kind of emphasize that culturalization is not about completely change what you have and what you do to kind of fit exactly how the market is. Because sometimes, from my experience working in different countries and everything, sometimes actually having the international brand of you coming from a different markets actually become a very important or very useful propositions, because they do actually appreciate you are not from here, or you appreciate you are coming from a different countries, more innovations, more innovatives that are slightly different, bring something different to that. So you're right. It's kind of finding the big balance between the two. So whenever, so my culturalization strategy and growth strategy is very much looking into from the point of the data and insights, because I think having those is very important to kind of guide, set the directions of your global strategy. So when it comes to kind of like looking at data and insights and so on, so it's very important to kind of look into what kind of data or informations you have, and being empathetic about the users, but then at the same time you want to empathize your stakeholders and your company values and business as well. So it's not like, oh, you talk to users and get the data about what they want, what they need and so on, and then you just do everything to fill into what they adapt to what their needs are. But also you need to kind of pair it up with, is that what our values are? Is that what we want to be seen in the market? To be that, because sometimes what the locals actually trends are looking into, what other competitors are doing in the market, might be against the value or the visions that you have as a business. So it's kind of finding the balance between the two, to kind of make sure you don't lose it, but at the same time you can emphasize what you have as well.
Okay. That's really good sound advice, right? It's about finding balance. It's not just about just going all in, trying to localize it such that you lose your identity. Speaking of identity, actually, when I was doing, some last minute read ups about, culturalizations and things like that. One thing that I thought was very interesting was that you actually posted about this, I think yesterday or day before yesterday, where you actually say that, don't follow this advice of see what the local competitors
Yeah.
do, um, and then try and try and localize it in that sense. Can you explain a bit more about why you said that?
Mm-hmm. So yeah, so it's very obvious. Like a lot of times when we say, okay, go into know, okay, let's do competitor analysis, right? You want to know what the competitors are doing, who the competitors are, what they're doing, and can we or how they market themselves and where do they sit in the market, and so that we can find a gap in between to do that. It's all good. I think it's very important for you to do that if you kind of go into the new market, whether you are Southeast Asian company to go into another Southeast Asian markets or from international to Asia. It's always very important to understand the market landscape, I guess. And then you can make decisions where you want to plug yourself in that market share to capture the market share. But what the post I was actually posting about was about not just following exactly what you found in your market analysis. So what triggered that post was I was listening to a podcast and someone was saying the guests were talking about they are more on the design side, not overall business. So you were talking about she was being asked about how to keep on top of the cultural trends in a market that you are not familiar with. And the advice was to either follow the social media of all the designers are doing and hear what they are talking about so that you can follow the flow, or you actually go to a website and see what they have on the competitor website and so on. I felt like I did say in the post that I flinched when I have that because it's very dangerous if you do that because first of all, if you kind of follow what exactly other people are doing, you are actually always one step behind of what they do, because they might showing this now, but in the box behind the scene, they might actually already thinking about ahead of the next strategy or innovations and so on. So you don't see that part, and you're just following exactly what they have. And secondly, as well, is that what they show, what they do, and everything might not be the right things to do or the what the customer wants. So I'll give you an example. So I was working with international online dating apps that wanted to go into Japan. Oh, actually, they're already in Japan. They just wanted to grow bigger, but they kind of realized that they can't find their fit very well in that very crowded market, because they have a lot of local dating apps or websites already. And then plus you have another international brand as well into that. So they kind of wanted to understand what are other people doing, and on the feature sides, product sides, and then also on the marketing sides, how they do campaigns, and then also on the brand positioning and propositions, like how they talk about themselves. Is that more about very serious marriage, like you go dating, you're looking for a marriage, or actually more casual things or something in the middle? So we kind of look into the whole market landscape and what people do, everything. And then we have a list of features that we can see what each apps are actually providing. And also, I don't know if you're dating app or you're familiar with that, they have a lot of criteria like heights and if they're smoking or not, blood type. Apparently it actually have it on every single apps in Japan. And also like, oh, which day do you have day off? Is that Saturday and Sunday, or actually Monday and Tuesday, or whatever? So apparently there are a lot of things, a lot of all these criteria being selected. So the client I'm working with is like, oh, should we do all this? Because if you look at all 5 competitors and all of them have it, or all 4 of them have it, should we kind of put in all these criteria of the features? But we actually go further to kind of talk to the users, digging into it a lot more. And then we realize actually 70% of those features actually not important at all, not being used at all. It's just because someone put it there and everyone keep following it. So that was important, to just not following exactly what other people do. Then the client I'm working with, that we can actually then concentrate on putting the efforts and money and investment in other things that is more important rather than trying to roll out all the things that competitors have. And apparently we need to do that as well.
Okay, that's really interesting. Now I've got this burning question that I need to ask you now. Because so you're talking about how in that example, right? This company said, should we be doing X, Y, and Z because all the other five competitors have it, and you're saying you found out that the users don't actually use it. But at the same time, and please correct me if I'm wrong, because you're the expert in this case. I was reading about how it's very important to understand primary research and secondary research. So like if there is something that is already prevalent in the market that already works, you don't necessarily need to do like a super deep research, and it's actually better or easier to follow what has already paved the way, versus like more deep or more greenfields type research, is secondary research, where it is a field that is, or an area that is less explored. So in that case, right, how would you then advise teams to find that balance between this is what everybody else is doing, you might as well do it, versus the, oh, you might want to take a little bit more time to research? Because I think coming from a product perspective or product lens perspective, time is where it either makes or breaks your organization or your product, right? Especially when you're racing against incumbents within the industry. So I'm just curious to know, like, is there a way for teams to better understand, like, hey, how do I understand whether what everybody else is doing is good, or is it you cannot substitute for just good research, or or understanding what needs to be done?
Yeah. So you're talking about, you brought it up very early on about primary research and secondary research. So of course secondary research is easier because it's less time consuming and also more cost efficient as well. But then there's only certain level you can get into that, because sure, you can kind of look into what other people are doing and then do some Googling or AI now. So because everyone's asking, but very important, like we all know, not everything on the internet is actually very is accurate. So I always say, whatever you find out, you need to kind of validate it, because even sometimes I'm looking for something, and you can find, if you keep looking, you can find actually contradicting or not very accurate, and so on. So it's kind of like making sure you validate them and making sure that what you have is actually accurate and correct, because you don't want to make decisions based on some inaccurate, unless it's kind of not as important. It's just a good way of giving you an indication to make a next decision, then fine, go ahead and do that. Sometimes you don't actually have to go into primary research if you have the internet data. So it's very often I see companies or teams forgot that they might have data within their organizations already, one way or another, from customer service or from the data that they collected with from their platform and so on. So work with data scientists if your company have one, or actually look into how a different way that you can capture information so that it actually can inform how you do that. Because all this, like you say, if it's time consuming, if you have all this data already, you need to kind of race into getting what is next coming up, then you can do that as well. But then sometimes, I say unfortunately, but it's not unfortunately. It's more like if you have time and the budget, sometimes it's good to do the primary research as well. If you identify there's a gap in between the elements as well. So to do that, you probably want to do some exercise to understand what information you have already in that market. So we are talking about a new market as well. So sometimes you might want to kind of do some exercise. I have an exercise called 4-bucket exercise, where I do sometimes very beginning or with a team, because that is a very good foundation to get everyone to put together all the information, knowledge, insights, or beliefs that they have about their customers or their about the market together into one place, and then challenge each other about whether they are accurate, up to date, or actually they should be validated or invalidated further as well. So the 4 buckets is basically as the name called. It's like you have 4 buckets. You get everyone in and then say, okay, put all the information, insight, beliefs, questions you have, or you could be questions as well, not just knowledge, into post-it notes. Each post-it notes is 1 questions or 1 beliefs or 1 assumptions or 1 insights, so on. And then put them into one of the buckets. The first bucket is facts buckets. So this is everything that you know is true, that you don't have to test again, experiment again, or validate again, that you can just use that to make a decisions for your products or for any other business decisions. The second bucket is called strong hypothesis buckets. These are the ones that actually based on very good understanding of certain elements, and then you know it's actually almost the facts, almost get to the facts, but you probably need a few more things to kind of validate it and so on. So move them into the facts buckets. And then the third one is weak hypothesis bucket. So these are the one that you heard it from someone else, or you believe it, and you go on holiday, you see some they do that in this country, and you say, oh, maybe that's how they behave, or stereotypes. Information that you probably get that you want to kind of put in this bucket so that you can actually further test it and validate and invalidate again. And then the last one is unknowns bucket. So it could be known unknowns or unknown unknowns. So unknown unknowns might be, it could be like, we just don't know how, like for example, hirers in Indonesia actually hire people, or we just don't know how Japanese actually view a topic about like LGBTQ or so on and so on. So once you have all of them put it together, you want to challenge everyone, especially the first bucket, to say, okay, we have all these post-its in the facts bucket. Can anyone who actually wrote that kind of tell us where they get the information from, how they are so sure they are facts? That is there anything that back it up as well? Because like I say, this is a bit that you can just use to make a decision. You don't want to make a wrong decisions because the information wasn't correct. So I remember doing this with one of the companies for Indonesia market as well. Like a lot of them put in facts, and they're all senior stakeholders. Like, no, I know what I know and everything. And then when I start asking one person to validate, or where do you put the, how can you back it up? What you say is a fact. I can slowly see the post-it notes start moving by other people from the facts to other buckets, because they just know they don't have a way to kind of back it up. They say, oh, okay, maybe not a fact, and maybe it's a strong hypothesis.
Sorry, can I interrupt for 1 minute, right? So in the example you gave, I was really smiling because it's very common in Asian culture, right? So, oh, I know this for a fact. Then when you start asking them, okay, how do you know this? Then it becomes a little bit more gray. So I guess the question for you when you're talking about this 4 bucket exercise is, how do you draw the line between what's a fact? Like, for example, and again, I'm just asking this out, consider me as someone who's stupid, no background information at all. Would you say that if I grew up experiencing this, is that a fact, or is that like a strong hypothesis or weak hypothesis?
I wouldn't put it as fact. So okay. Yeah. So, well, first of all, you say that we Asians always think that we know it all and so on. Actually, that workshop was with the Southeast Asians company. So everyone is from different countries, the representative. And then we have some in Indonesia as well, because that was for the Indonesian market. And so like what you say, like, oh, I grew up here, I know it all. I wouldn't put it in facts, because this is exactly the same thing that I always tell clients, that I know your local teams tell you this, your local salesperson or operations told you this is how it works and so on. It's good information, but there's always a personal biases and personal opinions onto that as well, whether we like it or not, whether we realize or not. I grew up in Malaysia for over 20 years and being there, like, it's the same thing, right? Like I can see it. Oh, this is how people behave. But I start to actually challenge myself. Is that right, or is that something that I haven't seen in the underlying that I actually, because we want to believe what we see, right? We are so used to the environment. Sometimes we don't see what is outside that. This is also applicable when when we do research or so on. Like, I go into a different markets, I have a local teams to help me to execute the practical things like recruiting participants and so on. I often see when I sit in research sessions on guiding the research and everything, there are a lot of times the local moderator will say, yeah, but that is very common, like very obvious. We do that all the time here. Like, why is it so special? Like, you want me to promote more, or you want to find out more? But being an outsider or step out from the family environment, you actually can see that the one thing that they say is very normal and common to them is actually very unique if you're from the global view, and it's something that we actually can use that to leverage what the company could do in this market as well. So sometimes being so familiar with in the market doesn't mean that you know it all. So, like, for example, you say, right, we know the users. Like, this is the same. Everyone will say, I'm the users as well. But that is the whole thing about research, right? If even you don't talk about culturalization, you are not the users. Your stakeholders are not the users. You still have to talk to them as well. So yeah, to kind of draw the line, to kind of challenge them, it's not facts, or maybe it's indeed facts. It's that thing. I ask them to back it up where they find it, challenge them. If they say this is a fact that I have this research we done, but then have to find out like how long ago was this research being done that make it as a fact. Because it might be outdated already, because people behavior change and environment change and so on.
And I guess to that point that you made, there's going to be another question after this, but I just wanted to sort of synthesize this a little bit. It also helps to take out, like hippo syndrome from the conversation as well, right? Just because this person is the highest paid guy in the room or highest paid woman in the room, and they go, I know this for a fact, and everybody just withers and dies, right? So this would be a good way to say, okay, let's take that as something that could potentially be a fact. Can you cite your sources or why that is the case? Would that be a good way to sort of make sure that the information is going into the right bucket?
Yeah, I think that is a very good way to putting it as well. To say sometimes you're right. So it's a technique of how you talk to your stakeholders is all right, especially the C-level and everyone, depending on the personality, whether they are happy to be challenged or they are just like, I know it all and so on. So if they are that I know it all and it's always right, fine, like put it in the fact bucket, but you are the one going to tidy up and kind of analyze the information in the bucket, right? So because how do you use the output of the buckets exercise is that you take it out and say, okay, what are the things that you feel like you don't know or you need gaps and everything, and then you kind of put them together to see whether there's a way for you to find the answers. Sometimes one post-its one in bucket 2 and in the bucket strong hypothesis and then another post-it in weak hypothesis, they might be actually quite similar in some way that you can combine it and say, okay, if we ask this question or we go in and find information, it can help us to answer the two questions that we have in these two different buckets. So you might have some in the facts buckets that actually because the C-level wanted you say it's a fact. You can put it there, but then when you analyze it, you might want to make a note and say, is there any way to kind of bring that in one way or another when you do research or something to kind of make sure it's a correct way? Because it's not like one question, you need to do one research for one question. You always like, if we need to do research, you can actually pick and choose what you need to put it in to prioritize your research priority or what you need to do, or the data you need to find out. So yeah, there's a way. So there's a way to kind of go into that. ideally you want stakeholders that is actually happy to be challenged, and then there will be a conversation going on and to find out more gaps into that as well. The other thing that I want to kind of bring in as well is like we talk about the secondary and the primary research earlier. So I have this framework where it's actually based on an organization cultural framework that I was kind of adopting to it. But it was kind of like, if you think about it as a pyramid, the top pyramid is something I call it stated values. So it's something that what people say they do, that you can get from survey or is interviews. People say, oh, I do this or I do that. So that is easy. So that is a bit like market research or so on. And then the second level, I call it as experience norms. So it's what people do, their behaviors. So you can do that from ethnography, you go and observe what people do. So one is what people say they do, what is what they actually do. So these two is actually very easy. It's feasible. You can see it, you can hear it, and so on. So it could be captured from market research, user research, or your data, and so on. The things that actually important, and that's what normally the clients come to me as well, is the bottom two layers, which is more invisible. It's about underlying unconscious values and beliefs that even the locals didn't know they are doing that, or they wasn't aware that they are having this kind of mentality, because these are the things that is actually influence the subconscious behaviors that they are doing. And that is important to understand, because that is the true value where you can actually get into the nitty-gritty of that culture or that market. And then the last bit is what is triggering all this subconscious underlying value and beliefs, and subsequently influence what they say and what they do. So the bottom two are very important to find out. That's why a lot of times when you go to a new market, like for example, if you are a Malaysian company, you want to go to Indonesia or Thailand or so on, it's not just say, oh, how they are different from us. It's understanding what triggering all these behaviors, so that you actually can look at it from a different angle to find a new way or new propositions to address those needs and those underlying value.
Okay, so to recap that portion of it, did you have a name for that exercise that you used? Because I kind of got the notes about it, but not the name.
So the frame, the you mean the pyramid?
Yeah, the framework,
yeah. I call it market level culturalization, a cultural model.
Okay, market level cultural model. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and so that consists of four sections: two within the visible and two within the invisible. One is the stated value, or what they say. One are the experience norms and what they do. And then in the invisible are the underlying or unconscious values. And then finally, it is the triggers for what gives rise to these values. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
correct. Very good. So the first two level, the visible one is everyone doing it. You are, if you're doing that, you cannot set everyone, it be on par with everyone. The bottom two layers are often where we see that it can set a company apart, because then allow them to make a more rounded decisions on their strategy.
Okay, so while you were talking about this, and I'm trying to process all of this, one question that came to me as well is, it sounds, let's say, this four bucket exercise, let's say the market level culture model, it speaks to a more strategic approach to doing things. And I guess to what you said, it's like when you want to enter a new market. So the question that I had is there a difference between trying to do a culturalization exercise at a strategic level versus at a tactical level? So to qualify my question, like, if let's say you're doing this at a business level, at a strategic level, is there something else that you would do if it's at a lower level, where it goes to like a feature or a few feature sets in that respect?
Yeah, so when we talk about tactical, so strategic versus tactical,
Yes.
when we talk about tactical, it's often is like testing the design whether it's working, and if the features is actually understandable by everyone, but the normal the local audiences as well. So yeah, I have a lot of people like saying the same thing, is that, oh, I only do kind of cross-cultural tactical research, like what should I do about that? And when you want to kind of course, like tactical is important, but if you want to have a bigger impact in the long run, it's actually really important to kind of embed some of the strategic mindset when you are doing that as well, because then you can actually help your products or help a business in a longer terms and in a bigger expanse. So for example, if you kind of say, oh, we a tactical product designers and or products persons, owners or product managers actually working with a more tactical researcher or designers. So it's very important, like you could actually look into the features and do the research and testing it and making sure it's kind of right. But at the same time, when you have the strategic mindset, every single time you do that, you can actually add in a few elements within that. So take a research example. So if you're doing tactical research, you are being asked to test this new design, whether it's work. Whether it is working in this country or that country. You could, let's say it's about pricing, choosing which plans that they want to go for. While you're testing that, you can also actually add some questions or kind of find out about their perceptions of why they go about choosing this kind of products. Is that because of the price? They care about the pricings, or because they actually think about more like what value will I get out of that? And like there's certain elements that actually will help you to kind of accumulate those informations, those insights, to help the business in a more strategic decision. So once you have those insights, even though you tested, say, oh, this design is good in here, but not good in here because it's not clear about the value that they are getting and so on. And then you have additional insight saying, oh, the reason for that is that they're very care about not wanting to kind of pay for whole months, but only use for a few days per week. So when they are not using those days, they are feeling that they are being cheated and they're not getting the best value. So they are looking for things, information about that. So those are actually really important, because the insights that you kind of provide about, oh, I don't want to feel cheated because I pay for whole months, I only use 20 days. That could actually help a proposition team to say, actually, maybe we need a different plans for them. Maybe we need a plans for get them to pay weekly or monthly. Weekly or daily, so that they can just pay whenever they want to use that products. So you can use the tactical when you carry out your tactical exercises or tasks. You can always actually have strategic insight, because then that will make you more powerful and more impactful in the business as well.
Okay, so it sounds like, so again, I'm just listening to all this from a product lens, right? So it would seem like there is that strategic element of what you know about the market that you plan to either penetrate or expand or whatever, and at the same time, you also want to then append into that your tactical knowledge as you gain that data to actually append to that as well. So it would seem like, if you have something like a living document or something that you can continuously refer back to, it sounds like it could be really, really powerful, because it's something that, at a business level, you could say, oh, we feel that the pricing should be this, but in the process of trying to roll out this particular feature, they've actually come across more insight that says, hey, people really want to only pay for what they use. So they want a more on demand as opposed to a traditional SaaS model, for example. Is that something that you would recommend, where you mix the data between the strategic or the tactical, or there's actually no difference between the two in that respect when it comes to research?
Well, definitely there's a bit of differences between the two. So for example, it's depending on who you're presenting to, right? Or who you actually need to kind of convince to make the decisions. So a C-level might not care about the tactical side as much. So when you present to them, you might actually need to kind of make what is important to them more obvious and so on. So there's a difference between the two. But when products owners or managers work with researcher or designer on information and everything, because I believe that a lot of products manager and owners, they actually not just on the short terms, but they're actually working on the long-term roadmap as well, or midterm,
Yep.
short-term, midterm, and long-term as well.
Mm.
So whatever tactical maybe is for now, right now, but you need to accumulate information so that to help you to kind of make decisions for your roadmap in the next quarter or next half year for the directions of what you're going to build or what you're going to look into. So all these informations, when you're doing tactical, you can start adding up, like you say, put it together, add it up, and informations. What I always see successful in organization is when the organizations are working together cross-functional. So let's say a product team actually come to me to say, we want to understand this market so that will help us with our product roadmap and innovation, product innovations and strategy as well. Then whenever we found something, when we recognize that actually this element is very important also for marketing, we'll bring the marketing team in as well. Just like, so this is really important because we found this and this and this, or we actually brings in the other growth teams or whatever. So to kind of share the informations with them so that everyone is actually aligned, making decisions, even though they are on a different domain, making the same decision for the market. Because put it bluntly, like even products, you have a very good product team and you do very good products and so on. It's not possible to just successful if your marketing team is really rubbish. They are not going to bring people in, the right people in and so on. Vice versa, if they are very good at marketing team and bring people in, but the product is not really good, people comes in and it's just it's not what I expected, they leave. So it's all about collaborations and have a holistic view about how you can share with each other as well. And that is also one thing that I always hear product team always say, we are not impactful enough, businesses and listen to us as much. That is how you can make yourself or your team more prominent in the organizations to say, actually, we bring people in, we have this inside and everything. So that is a good way we see you can be more influential in the organization as well.
Fantastic. So one more question just around this exercise and how you do this as well, right? Actually, a few more questions, kind of think of it. I wanted to ask you, like, from your experience, because you obviously go into companies as the, for lack of a better word, the outsider looking in, right? How much do you think that plays into how much people will listen, as opposed to, let's say, me going back to my company and saying, hey, I'm saying this, and then we're like, oh, this is just the product for the talking, right? So does that actually have an impact to have someone to be neutral? And I'm going to conflate this a little bit with what you were saying just now, because sometimes you're saying that some stakeholders, or when people come into this meeting, the 4 buckets exercise, they don't necessarily like to be challenged. So I guess if I'm trying to distill my own question down, would it be that in the cases where it's harder to get through, would it make more sense to bring in somebody external, let's say like yourself, to actually bring the difficult news or the difficult information?
I certainly agree with that, because sometimes the reason I was being brought in is because of that. This is like we need someone else to come and kind of say the same things that we have been saying, but maybe in a different ways or more convincing way. So yeah, I definitely believe that there is elements on that, and sometimes also it's really depending on how you present the information as well, right? Because if you say we done the research, or we actually have this data that we found on our internal teams or internet platforms, this is what we see. It's very hard for them to argue if it is the proof in front of them to say this is how things are working and so on. And also it's a tactic of, this is an ongoing, like continuously learning for everyone, right? Like how do you talk to the stakeholders in a way that they will they will resonate with you. How do you I use the word empathetic and empathize with them as well, because everyone's very different. They are busy. They might be hard to convince and so on. But what are the things that they care about? If they care about money or the cost, then can you actually turn what you need to do into cost relevant? To say, if we do that, we calculate that this is going to save you as much money, or this is actually cost us so much money if we go down this route, because it's the wrong thing. So it's kind of depending on what they care about, and talk to them in a different ways. Sometimes as outsiders or external consultants, we could do that easier, because like I say, we are from a fresh point of view, but then at the same time they have the inside view about how business works, so you have to work with them to say, this is our view, outside views, and this is what we know about the market and how you should do that. Is that aligned with what your visions is in the next 10 years or 5 years? Because if there's a clash, then whatever we suggest, they won't listen to it as well. So there's a balance between, I think, whether you're internal or external, there's always understanding where they're coming from and where they stand, and stand in their own shoes to see what actually they care about, what keeps them awake.
All right, thanks for that. One thing I picked up from what you were saying just now, and I think it's super important. I mean, people hear this. I know a lot of product people will hear this over and over again, but again, awesome to hear it from someone like Chui Chui, is that, you know, when you're talking to the different stakeholders, try and identify what is it that's important for them, right? And have that conversation, make it apples to apples, right? So if their thing is about revenue and you're coming in with something else that's not as important to them, I guess then it makes that discussion a little bit harder as well. So I think important to have that.
And as well, it's not just like what they care about, it's also what details they want, because we always assume that high level doesn't care about the details. They just want the key insights, tell us what to do and so on. But I actually in SIG, I have one C level stakeholders want the details, not just the top level, what you were doing, everything. He wants the stories of every single participants we talk to, every hirers we talk to, because what they say is that we actually have no idea what they are like, how hirers in Indonesia hire if they don't use social media, and every story is so different when we talk. So they want a story slide about each participant. So that is getting into the details. But that is what the C-level wants to have, the top level. So it's also always the kind of understanding what kind of person they are. Do they scan things through very easily, or they just like, don't tell me so much, I have no patience, just help me down the road. So yeah, it's finding the balance, what they care about, what's important to them, and what actually resonate with them in the format.
Okay. Yeah, good point. So I think also try to play to the audience and see what they need to make the point better. All right. Another question though is, when trying to get things right, especially when you're trying to expand and things like that, is there a certain size of company, or a certain function that has to be there before you can embark on this exercise? Because it does sound like it will be somewhat intensive, and it's ongoing. You always want to make sure that you're gathering information about a particular market, a particular strategy, and like if I were to think about trying to do this with a 20-person startup versus like a 500-person, and then as opposed to 1,000. So is there do you usually advise to only start doing things like this at a certain stage, or it can be done at any level?
No, I actually very good question. So thanks for asking that, because that is one mistake I often actually see in company. I say startups, but actually they're probably not. Well, they could be startups. Sometimes they could be mature startups, like 20 people or even less. So they often say like, we're not thinking about international culturalization until we actually very well in the home market. And then when we are ready, then we'll talk to you and so on. So that's very dangerous, because it's very risky, because ultimately all businesses you want to expand, because you can only capture certain level of market share in one market. So eventually, if you want the big business, you have to expand. You have to know about your users in other markets as well. So having that in global mindsets from the very beginning is very important, not just for the founder, but also actually for the whatever small teams you have, because then that will help them to say, okay, whatever decisions we're going to make now on the products or how we're going to build it, is in our business positioning and proposition, it has to be extendable in the future. It can't be just one. So take examples, like I used to work with a startup. They haven't even launched yet. They just get an investment. The investor is actually from a few countries, so they definitely want to expand into those countries. But they are health related, is to kind of support and up that support women, especially that trying to get pregnant. When they get pregnant, all the first trimester and so on, and then after 2 years after they get delivered. So it's kind of like everything. So we start off in the UK, and of course a lot of information that we know the positioning, how we're going to design the products, how we're going to have the product is more facts related, and how we're going to put the features together, shape the information and everything. It's very, very much NHS focused. Is how the British moms will use the product, because we have a midwife, and then after 16 weeks, and then you start your, it's very different from other countries. So if they build the products from just with that, when they're ready to launch into other markets, they will either have to redesign the whole thing, recreate the whole thing, or actually change a lot of their positioning. So it's always very important to start from the very beginning to have that mindset, even though like you are not going to launch in the 3 or 4 years. And also to kind of excite your train, have a culture, a global mindset culture within organizations. Everyone knows when we get into a new market, it's actually easier to get into it. So, and when you talk about like maybe 5 or 6 people or 10 people, small company, they want to launch in a new market. They say, oh, and you make a point earlier that it has to be ongoing. And of course, is because it's kind of always going to change in the market. But it doesn't have to be always a big thing for each market. So for example, you are a startup and you have 2 or 3 markets, or you cover one home market and the 2 other markets. You could actually do it very small, in a small chunk. Doesn't have to be kind of overwhelmingly. Just understand every single bit and pieces and improve your product step by steps. And sometimes you get to a point you say, okay, we improve this market for a certain level, just leave it to grow for a while we focus on another market. So yeah, it could be in a high level sense, or like splash a lot of money, just a big research so we understand everything. So it helps us to make the roadmap until 2 years. Or it could be actually smaller sizes, like you just do a few research or look into a few elements within that market. Doesn't even have to be user research, but any kind of research you have, gather data, and then keep coming back to it. So yeah, it could be small teams or it could be big teams. It's just the scale of it and the tempo, and also the frequency and everything will change slightly based on your setup.
Perfect. Yeah. So I think that was one of the myths that I really wanted to bust as well, because that's usually what a lot of people say. Oh, we're not big enough. We'll do it when we get there. And as Chui Chui has just mentioned, usually by that time you're probably a little too late already. So it's not really dependent on the size of the organization, but it's really the size of your organization determines the size of the research that you can do. And I think that's really important to adapt. And speaking of adaptation, there's a very hot take question that I really want to ask you as someone who has worked with so many different companies, because a lot of the companies that you work with are actually tech companies. And most tech companies employ software methodologies, especially agile, right? Whether it's Scrum or Kanban or some flavor of agile these days, or even lean for that matter. And one of the mantras, or one of the primary principles of Scrum, of lean, is about speed. And I did allude to this earlier on about speed. How dangerous, or how bad is it that it would actually cause people to make bad decisions because they choose to sidestep these kinds of research, all in the all for the sake of just having first movers advantage. Do you have any like examples of where this has gone wrong and how you've helped to sort of right that, or or are you saying, or is there a world where, yeah, if you want speed, you can sacrifice this kind of research?
Yeah. So it's like it's the same things that we talked about earlier, right? Like your size versus the tempo and the type of research or the type of information you need to gather, how frequently and so on. So it's the same thing here as well. So it depending on, if you need to be fast, then don't make very big decisions, because whatever you're going to gather might be good enough for you to make that decision for now, but you might be actually make a quick decision based on strong hypothesis, for example, and then you test it out and then you get MVP and you get the result back. You say, oh, it's not okay. Then we actually do A/B testing, A/B testing, and so on, and kind of test it out and get the fact from doing that. So you have agile and then you test it, and design it, you test it, and it went out MVP, A/B testing, and so on. So with that, you could do that with a very quick pace. But if you're going to make a very big decisions on how you're going to brand positioning yourself, or actually create a very big products change, features change, or products positioning change, then I would say take a bit more time to kind of make sure that that is the right, because sometimes it's good. There's a conflict. I actually saw a post on LinkedIn today. People say MVP is dying. Like, don't MVP it, because if you get out a very bad quality product, people remember it. And I think the guy was posting it was using Apple Maps, as example, which is like, oh, you opened it 12 years ago. It was bad because they cannot put it out. Who actually opened it back again now? Because everyone now using Google Maps, because they remember 12 years ago, Apple Maps was so bad. So he's kind of arguing on that. And then you can see on the comments that everyone's just like, no, you still need MVP and so on. I think there's a argument for both sides. It's depending on what you actually bring it out to test. Yeah, I think the risk that you're talking about, you're right. It would be risky if you actually make a lot of big decisions based on just very quick, put it out and do it in the wrong way. Sometimes you can do painted test, it's kind of still there. You still can get a result, but also always complement with other things. If you can do some testing or data collections in between to move that forward, then that'll be good. It's the implications of what if it goes wrong. If it is a small chance of just small damage or whatever, then fine, go ahead, be quick. But if it is the risk is higher, then take a bit more time. Because there's one quote that I always get from a SVP of actually Spotify Insight team, and he was always saying people always forget, always don't want to put the investment and time at the beginning, but if to kind of properly understand the users and the market, but then once you take that, it will make the whole journey so much easier, so much fluent, so much more confident as well.
Yeah, okay, that I love that take, right? It depends on the cadence or the frequency, right? So if you want to move fast, then make small decisions. If you want to make big bets or more risky decisions, then put the time in. So I think that's a fantastic response to that, and I hope that many who are listening will take that to heart as well. All right, I want to quickly move on to the next section. We've actually spent a lot more time than I thought that we would, just around culturalization. But I also wanted to talk to you about your book, because you have recently written a book called Research for Global Growth. It's a very long name, right? Research for Global Growth: Strategies and Guidelines for Cross-Cultural Insights. I'm just going to shorten it to say Research for Global Growth when we talk about it now. And I wanted to understand from your perspective, like, why did you decide to offer a book?
So like you mentioned earlier, I have been doing this 15, 16 years. And I have done the research very early on, and I have conduct research, and I have lead teams to kind of do international research and so on. Doing research is one area already, and when you add into the international elements, there's even more to that, more complications on you're dealing not just on the language barriers, but also you are dealing with the culture when you work with local teams, and then you have cultural barriers with the cultural elements with the users in local markets. So there are a lot of different areas. People often kind of forget about that. I start to move into more strategic side. That's why I kind of last year I was thinking like, I have all this knowledge. If I stop doing this knowledge will go to nowhere. I say this knowledge about small details about the things that you have to think about, like, what are the things that you need to consider when you're planning for international projects. I once do 8 countries at the same time, cross different holidays in different countries, and then the clock changes in a lot of different countries as well. So there are a lot of things that you have to think about. Public holidays in that country, how you go about getting people to come to like, for example, we once did a research in Qatar, rich people. We actually, this is like maybe 10 years ago or even more, like we wanted to we want to see how people who are high net worth individuals book holidays. And we went to Qatar, we paid £750 incentives for 1 hour, which is a lot for 12, even for 12 or 10 years ago. No, 12 people, like we want to talk to maybe 15 people, only one turn up, and then everyone just keep not turning up. We keep calling, it's just like, inshallah, just like, does that mean yes or no? And then of course they're not turning up. And then we have to think about, okay, what else is, because money, they don't care. So, we will, actually it was for Ritz-Carlton. So it was, so we say, okay, we will get a chauffeur to come and pick you up. To say, it doesn't mind because they already have their own drivers. So, and then eventually we know its status, and we know what they care about. Status is relationship and so on. So that's what they care about. So what eventually we do is we get the hotel managing director to call them to say, we will give you a private tour on this palace, because the hotel is built in a palace that used to be a palace. We give you a private tour and everything. Sure enough, they turn up, and one even turned up with assistant. They came into the room with 2 people. I just said, we just recruited 1 people. And then, the assistant walked at the back, and then at one point he stopped, and then assistant go to the front, get to the chair and sit down. And then there's 2 of them just in the laptop. That is how they book holidays, because he's just sitting there. The assistant operates the computer. And it's amazing. But that is the things like you need to, it sounds very small and not important, but it's really important to understand all these things before you go into a new market. I got a lot of burnt in between all this process, setting up, working with local teams. I just wanted to put all of them together in a place. And I thought books might be the easiest way to kind of put it out there, so that I can put all my knowledge I have in one place, because sometimes I don't even know I have those knowledge until I doing it. And I just, we need to care about it. Check this out, and make sure that we kind of look into these things and that thing. So that's how the book come across. So it's very more strategic at the front, and then a bit more practical on the second part of the book, about setting out the cultural things that you need to think about how different countries view time. So how does that work when you talk to them, visit them, run sessions with them, and so on.
Okay. Thank you so much for that. I guess another question is also, obviously I haven't read the book yet. I'm hoping to be able to read it soon. Is what are the key areas that you focus on in your book? Like, can you give us some information about what kind of areas? Because I know that you mentioned first part a bit more strategic, second part is a bit more practical. But what are some of the things that we can look forward to in the book?
So the first part was like, so I have a few chapters. So the first chapter is the first few chapter is about introductions about localization. So I talk about localizations, how is it different. In my book, actually, I introduce a 3 level of culturalizations, where we kind of look into like respecting creating the respect with the locals, and then creating a good experience for them, and then enhance the experience on that. So I talk about the few different steps and how important it is to actually have a holistic view to cover not just the visible that we talk about, but the invisible as well. And then I think the second chapter or second part, it was about strategic and tactical that we talk about, and the exercise we can do, and so on. So the first part is all about that and how you form a good cross-cultural insights, so that it actually can help you in making a strategic decisions, and also as tactical as well. And then the second part of the part 2, 3, 4, and 5, and 6, and so on, it was more about putting a plan together on if you want to kind of understand the different culture and different markets, how you go about doing that. So you talk about if you're going to work with local teams, how you kind of write a brief, and if you're going to go out and understand the market, how you schedule and find the best way to communicate with people. So it's more practical in terms of running that. And then the last bit was about how you actually cover it, how we kind of communicate what we found, and the things that we kind of recommendations that we want the stakeholders to sign off, and things like that. How do we actually present it in a better way?
Okay, fantastic. So last question about the book. When you were writing this book, were you envisioning a specific type or group of people or roles, or maybe let me just ask the question a different way. Like, who do you think should read this book? Yes, that's a much easier way to ask.
So yeah, I think anyone who actually wanted to actually have a sense or touch on the international elements, or want to have international elements into it. So it could be products, could be research, could be anyone in day to day, if you are C-level or even that wanted to understand the complexity, want to kind of more have a better understand how to get into a market with a good insights, then they will be good, because there are a lot of examples that I actually put in throughout my careers on what the things are, how do we use the insights into informing the product team, the marketing team, and proposition teams, and the things that I done wrong, and actually what could have been better. So there are a lot of real life examples. So for researchers, research managers, product people, anyone, or I have actually a lot of developers reading it as well, because they wanted to be more involved in international elements, so that they can play a part into building something more international as well.
Okay, thank you so much. So I think that's a great point as well. Like just because you are a developer doesn't mean that you're not going to be involved with this. So I would definitely think that even if, especially if you're on the product side of things and you're working for an organization that will eventually expand, go international, it's definitely good to understand from people who've done it before. So yeah, I'll definitely say that based on the conversation that I just had with Chui, this would be definitely a book that I'll be getting, and I'll want to review it as well. So unfortunately, we've actually gone quite a bit. I do have to apologize to Chui as well. And thank you so much for coming on the show. What I wanted to ask you is, as a final question before we wrap up, like, is there anything that you want to leave with our listeners and viewers, or is there any advice that you want to give?
I would say, like, be open-minded, because that makes your life and the world more interesting as well. To be open, to understand, and be curious about what people either inside your world, within your world, or actually outside, how they behave, and like finding out about the things that you are not familiar with, and it's very like being open-minded and be curious about finding them out, whether it's you are doing anything that to do with international or not. When you go on holiday, like observe how people are doing, and we have friends from different culture, different background, get to know them as well, and sometimes be a bit further curious that, why do they think about that way, and how, why do they behave in a certain way, have different mentality, not to judge them, but to be kind of curious about all those things. Although there's a danger of that, because I didn't realize how much I always like curious. Oh, what is that? And what is that? My mom started to say, "You asking too many questions sometimes." I was just like, well, I didn't even realize I was asking. I was just like, my mom said too many questions. I was just like, yeah, but I'm just curious, like honestly curious about how things work, and so on. So I start to say, phrase it in a different way. Instead of going to Korea, say, why do they do that? I will say, I wonder how they do that. So my friends doesn't feel like they need to have answer for me, because sometimes I just voice out my curiosity.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Very, very funny thing is, you sound a little bit like my son as well, right? When he asks that
Like,
question.
why?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think, thank you so much, Gigi, for your time, as well. And so, I would like to close out the show, once again, to thank Gigi for really, sharing a lot. And she had to deal with a lot of, a lot of difficult questions. So I appreciate her candidness and honesty, as well. So my closing for this episode, I think, is that, I know that some people would say, "Oh, this isn't the typical product type podcast," but I don't think that is the case. I actually think that it is very important as product people to actually move towards more research, more design, and not just focus on, oh, I write PRDs and that's it. Like, I think we even covered it today, the importance of understanding the end to end. Because if you build a good product but you don't know how to acquire people, your acquisition engine is poor, it's gonna suck. If your acquisition engine is strong but your product is crap, same thing, right? So I definitely would recommend, as many product people to not just be good at the traditional product side of things, but to really think about things end to end, because the more you know, the more powerful you are, and the more valuable you will be able to make, or develop things that will impact, the users that you have. So yeah, having said that, I hope everyone has a good day, good week, good weekend, whatever it is that you're doing, and I will see you at the next, show. So thank you, and bye bye.